My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. while I was rinsing a coffee mug that had been sitting in my sink since dinner. One voicemail. I dried my hands on a dish towel, pressed play, and leaned against the counter like it was just another late-night check-in. My sister's voice came through steady and flat, like she was reading from a note. "You're out. Don't come back. We're moving on without you." I stared at the screen long enough for the display to dim once, then brighten again when I touched it. 5 seconds, maybe. Long enough to notice that my breathing stayed even. I typed one word. Okay. Then I put the phone face down on the counter. Outside my apartment window in St. Louis, the parking lot lights were throwing pale stripes across the asphalt. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's TV murmured through the wall. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary night. I didn't call her back. I didn't scroll through old photos. I didn't pace like I was supposed to. I sat at my small kitchen table and opened my laptop. By the time the login page loaded, my mind had already sorted itself into steps. Not anger, not panic, just order. Step 1, the trust. My parents had set it up years ago. To keep things simple, my dad said back then, like the words could make it true. In reality, it was a shared system with shared access, vague responsibilities, and one quiet rule that everyone seemed to understand without saying out loud. Don't challenge my sister. On paper, she was the executive contact, the person with the title, the one who spoke for the family. In practice, I was the one who kept it running. I handled the banking logins, the insurance renewals, the property tax reminders. When my parents downsized but didn't really let go, I was the one who got the calls about leaky valves, HOA notices, and why the utilities were suddenly late. I knew the password because I was the one who had reset it every time my sister forgot it. The dashboard opened. The numbers were familiar. The layout was familiar. Even the font felt like something I'd stared at too many times at midnight. I clicked into permissions. There was a clean list of names with little toggles beside them. Simple, almost polite. The kind of system that makes major decisions look like casual admin work. I didn't add notes. I didn't write warnings. I didn't send anyone a message. I changed access. Then I locked it. Just a few clicks. A quiet action that only mattered once someone tried to get in. I closed that tab and sat still for a moment, hands resting on the table, listening to the low hum of my refrigerator. I could picture my sister sleeping fine, phone on her nightstand, satisfied with the line she'd finally said out loud. "You're out." She thought it was a threat. It wasn't. Step 2. The house deal. The sale had been moving in the background for months, mostly handled through emails and calls I was copied on just enough to stay responsible, but never enough to feel respected. My sister liked to say, "We're selling Mom and Dad's place," like she was doing them a favor. What she meant was she wanted the money freed up fast. Liquidity, clean cash, a new plan that didn't include asking anyone for permission. The thing she never admitted out loud was that my name was on the transaction, not as an owner, as a required signer. Years ago, when no one wanted the responsibility of dealing with the property paperwork, I said yes. I signed what they put in front of me because I was told it would make everything smoother. It did. For them. I found the escrow officer's number in my email and called. It rang twice. "Hi," she said, professional and awake in a way that told me she'd already been in her office for an hour. "This is Dana." I gave my name. She recognized it immediately. I could hear it in the way her tone shifted, the slight pause as she pulled up the file without needing to ask. "I need to pause the transaction," I said. Silence on the line for half a breath. "Is there a dispute?" she asked, careful. "There is now," I said. She didn't push. She didn't ask for family details. She didn't need to. Some people hear that sentence and understand exactly what it means. "Okay," she said. "I'll note it and place a hold. You'll receive confirmation by email." "Thank you," I said. When I ended the call, my hand didn't shake. It was just a phone call, a procedural one, the kind of thing I'd done for everyone else 100 times, except this time it wasn't to rescue them from their own mess. It was to stop myself from being quietly used again. I closed my laptop and looked around my apartment. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't big. It was the place my sister used to call temporary, with a little laugh, like I was supposed to be embarrassed by it. But the air felt clean in here, like laundry detergent and the faint citrus smell of the dish soap on my hands. I went to bed without setting an alarm. I didn't listen to any other voicemails. I didn't check texts. I slept. And for the first time in months, it wasn't the thin kind of sleep where you wake up already bracing yourself. It was heavy and quiet. The next thing I remember is my phone vibrating hard enough to rattle against the wood of my nightstand. I rolled over and glanced at the screen. 6:12 a.m. Missed calls stacked in a column, filling the display faster than it could refresh. My sister's name again and again. Then my mother. Then my father. Then a number I didn't have saved, but I recognized the area code. I didn't pick up. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, feet on the cool floor, phone in my hand, and listened to it buzz itself tired. Then it stopped. The silence after it felt deliberate, like the moment before a door opens. I got up, brushed my teeth, made coffee, and sat back down at the kitchen table. Only then did I turn the phone over and look at the voicemail list. I still didn't press play. Not yet. Because I already knew what I'd hear first. And because I wanted to see what they tried next. I let the coffee sit a little too long before I drank it. The surface went still, then cooled, like it was waiting with me. My phone lit up again. Not a flood this time, but a steady pattern, spaced out like someone had switched from panic to strategy. I watched the screen for a moment, then set it back down beside my mug. When I finally opened the voicemail list, I didn't start with my sister. I started with the unknown number. The lawyer's voice was careful, the kind that tries to sound neutral, even when it isn't. "Hi, this is Martin Caldwell. I represent your family in the trust matter. We need to speak as soon as possible. There appears to be an issue with access and the pending property transaction. Please return my call. It's important. Important. Not urgent, not catastrophic. Yet." I stared at the transcript line that auto-generated under the voicemail, then tapped the screen off again. I wasn't avoiding them because I was scared. I was choosing silence the way you choose a door lock, not to punish anyone, just to make the boundary real. I drank my coffee, rinsed the mug, and moved through my morning like I had somewhere to be, even though it was my day off. That's the thing people misunderstand about moments like this. They assume calm comes later, after a breakdown, after a scene. For me, calm came first. The chaos came for everyone else. At 8:05 a.m., I got a text from my sister. "Pick up. Now." No greeting, no question. Just an order. At 8:09, another text. "You're going to ruin everything." At 8:11, my mother called again. I didn't answer. At 8:15, my father left a voicemail. I didn't listen. Instead, I opened my laptop again and pulled up the trust documents I'd saved in a folder I hadn't touched in years. The pages were scanned PDFs, slightly crooked, with the notary stamps half faded like someone had left them in a sunny drawer too long. The trust had always been presented like a family blanket, something warm, something protective. But when you read it without the family tone, it was what it actually was. Rules, roles, controls, and a few quiet clauses that explained why my sister had never fully cut me out, no matter how many times she implied she could. Because the trust didn't work the way she liked to speak. It wasn't about who sounded confident. It was about who was authorized. My sister was listed as the primary decision-maker, yes. But for anything labeled major transaction, the trust required my signature. Not my opinion, my signature. And it wasn't because my parents adored me or trusted me more. It was because years ago, when things were messy and they were trying to keep peace, I was the neutral one, the responsible one, the one who showed up when paperwork needed to be handled without someone turning it into a fight. I could remember my dad saying it like it was a compliment. "You're the steady one." What he meant was, "You'll do it without complaining." I scrolled through the transaction history, the payment logs, the small patterns that always told the real story. Utilities paid from the trust account? Yes. But my email was the one getting the notices. Insurance renewals approved, but my number was the callback contact. HOA fines resolved because I'd made the call and sat on hold. There were whole years in there where my sister's name barely appeared unless something needed signing or a decision needed to sound official. I wasn't shocked by any of it. I'd lived it. But seeing it cleanly laid out on a screen did something small and steady inside me. It made the pattern undeniable, not as a feeling, as a record. Around 10:20 a.m., the group chat came back to life. One I hadn't heard from in months. Aunts, cousins, people who never called unless there was a holiday photo or a crisis that needed a scapegoat. "What's going on? Your mom is upset. Please don't do anything rash." Rash. Like I'd thrown a chair. All I'd done was stop. I didn't reply. At 11:03, my sister finally left a voicemail that wasn't pure anger. Her voice was tighter, higher than usual, like she was trying to hold it together while she talked. "Call me back. This is getting out of hand." 10 minutes later, another voicemail. "You're embarrassing yourself." That one made me exhale through my nose, almost a laugh, but not quite. It was the same line she always used when she couldn't make me comply. Make it about my image, about shame, about how I'd look to other people, as if that was the only thing worth controlling. By noon, the calls slowed. Not because they calmed down, because they were adjusting. That's when I knew the fear had started. Fear doesn't scream forever. Fear pauses and thinks. At 12:41 p.m., my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I let it ring twice before I answered. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. No hello, no softness, just accusation dressed up as confusion. "I'm not doing anything," I said. I stopped doing things. There was a pause, and I could hear faint movement on his end, like he was pacing in a room with too much carpet. "That trust was set up for family," he said. "I'm family," I said. Another pause, longer this time. "Your sister is under a lot of stress," he said finally. Of course she was. She was always under stress when she didn't have control. "She told me not to come back," I said. "I respected it." "That was said in anger," he said quickly. "You know how she is." "I do," I said. "That's the problem." He exhaled, frustrated. "You're taking it too literally." I looked at the coffee mug I hadn't bothered to wash this time, the ring it left on the table, the little ordinary mess of my own life that no one in my family ever seemed to notice unless it inconvenienced them. Every time I asked for clarity, I said, I was told words matter. He didn't respond to that. He didn't argue with it. He shifted. "What happens if the sale falls through?" he asked. There it was, the real reason. "That depends," I said. "On what?" he asked, already tense. "On whether I'm still disposable," I said. He went quiet, not offended, not surprised, just quiet. "This isn't the time to make a point," he said. "I didn't make one," I said. "She did." He hung up. I set the phone down and sat still for a moment, listening to the refrigerator hum again, the soft click as it cycled. Then my email refreshed. A new message from the lawyer. No pleasantries this time. No "hope you're well," no gentle language, just a subject line that looked like someone had typed it with a tight jaw. Immediate attention required. I didn't open it right away. I stared at the sender line, then at the timestamp, then at the 3 little dots that meant there might be more coming. And I waited. I let the email sit unopened for another minute. Not because I was afraid of what it said, but because I knew the tone would matter. People don't change their language unless something underneath them has shifted. When I finally clicked it, the message was short. No greeting, no small talk, just a statement of facts, and a request framed like a warning. There had been a change to the trust access. The property transaction had been paused. The parties involved were concerned. He needed clarification of my intentions, and he needed it today. At the bottom, his signature block looked the same as always. Clean font, downtown office address, a phone number that implied he was used to being answered. I read it twice, then closed the laptop again. I wasn't refusing to cooperate. I was deciding what cooperation looked like now. I stood at the sink and ran water over my hands. The faucet squeaked the way it always did in this old building. I watched the stream hit my skin, warm at first, then hotter, like it had to catch up. Then I turned it off and dried my hands slowly. I didn't want my response to come from adrenaline. I wanted it to come from the same place my actions had come from all week. Quiet, practical, documented. I sat back down, opened the trust portal again, and took screenshots. Access changes, timestamp, activity log, not for drama, for clarity. Then I opened my email and searched for every message tied to the house sale, the escrow thread, the inspection schedule, the buyer's agent, the title company, all of it. I saved copies into a folder with today's date. It wasn't that I expected my sister to lie exactly. It was that I expected her to reshape the story as soon as it served her. She always did. Around 1, a new voicemail came in from my sister. I listened to that one. Her voice had changed again. Less sharp, more controlled, like she was trying on a calmer version of herself. "Just call me back," she said. "We can talk about this." It was the first time she'd said the word talk. Not because she cared how I felt, but because she could feel the system moving without her. I deleted it. A few minutes later, the lawyer called. Not a voicemail this time. The phone rang long enough that it felt deliberate. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. "Hello," I said. A short pause. I could hear the faint click of someone shifting a headset. "Thanks for taking the call," he said. "This is Martin Caldwell." "I know," I said. He cleared his throat gently, as if he was trying to keep the room calm, even through a phone line. "I'd like to clarify your intentions," he said. "Right now, the trust is in a position where transactions are stalled." "My intentions are clear," I said. "I'm not participating without respect." Another pause. Longer this time. "Your sister feels blindsided," he said. I looked at the light coming through my kitchen window, pale and thin. The kind of daylight that makes everything look honest, even the things people try to hide. "She told me not to come back," I said. That wasn't subtle. He didn't argue. He didn't defend her. That told me more than anything else. "I understand," he said. "That voicemail complicates things." "It does," I said. "She left it." He exhaled quietly. "From a legal standpoint," he said, "the trust requires cooperation for any major transaction involving the property. If you are refusing to cooperate, the process to remove you is possible, but it takes time." "I'm aware," I said. "And it can involve review," he added, careful. "Disclosures, court oversight." I didn't respond right away. I let the silence do its work. Finally, I said, "So you're telling me there's no fast way around my signature?" "I'm telling you the fast ways carry risk," he said. "Good," I said. He paused again, then asked, "What do you want?" The question landed cleanly. No judgment in it. Just the first real admission that I had leverage, whether anyone liked it or not. "I want separation," I said. "A clean exit from this role. Not more responsibility, not another promise that I'll be treated better later. I want it documented and dated." There was a soft tapping sound, like he was taking notes. "That's an option," he said. "It will change your sale timeline." "That's not my timeline," I said. He didn't disagree. "All right," he said. "If you're willing, I'd like to propose a meeting. Neutral location, everyone present. We put everything on record." I sat back in my chair. The wood creaked under me, a small sound in the quiet room. "A meeting," I repeated. "Yes," he said. "Not a call. It would be best." I didn't say yes right away. I looked at the folder on my laptop with the screenshots and emails, the kind of small evidence that doesn't look powerful until someone tries to rewrite reality. Then I said, "Send the details." "I will," he said. "Today." We ended the call. For a moment, nothing happened. No buzzing, no ringing, just the ordinary sounds in my apartment, the refrigerator, a car passing outside, the soft click of my laptop fan. Then, at 3:07 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Not light, not polite, the kind of knock that assumes you will open up because you always have. I stood, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole. My sister was in the hallway, arms folded, chin lifted, already wearing the expression she used when she expected the world to adjust around her. I rested my hand on the doorknob, and I waited one more second before turning it. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. My sister stood there like she expected the hallway to belong to her, coat on, hair smoothed back, phone in her hand. Her eyes moved past me into my apartment, quick and measuring, the way she always looked at anything she didn't control. "You look calm," she said. "I am," I said. She let out a short breath through her nose, like calm was an insult. "You can't do this." "I already did," I said. She shifted her weight and lowered her voice. "Mom's crying, Dad's losing it. The buyer is asking questions." I didn't answer right away. I could smell her perfume in the doorway, something sharp and expensive that didn't belong in this hallway. Behind her, the building was quiet. A faint elevator hum, someone's laundry detergent drifting out of a cracked door down the hall. "This isn't funny," she said. "I'm not laughing," I said. She stepped a little closer, like proximity could push me back into the old role. "You're holding everyone hostage." "I'm not holding anything," I said. "You told me I was out. I accepted it." Her jaw tightened. "You know what I meant." "You were clear," I said. She stared at me for a few seconds, eyes narrowed, searching for the version of me that used to soften. When she didn't find it, her tone changed. "You're overreacting to a voicemail," she said, slow and controlled. It was late. I was angry. I nodded once. "That's still what you said." She flicked her gaze toward my kitchen table, where my laptop sat open a few inches. "Reverse it," she said. "Fix it. Today." I didn't move. The hallway stayed still around us. No one else came out. No audience. That mattered to her. I could feel it in the way she kept glancing down the corridor, like she wanted the pressure of witnesses. "I talked to Martin," she said. "He says if you don't cooperate, it gets messy." "I'm not afraid of messy," I said. "I lived in it." Her mouth twitched, almost a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You always take things personally." "I used to," I said. "Now I take them literally." She looked at me again, sharper this time. "What do you want?" There it was again. Not an apology, not a question about how I'd been treated, just the first real negotiation. I kept my voice even. "I want a clean separation." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, "I'm not your backup plan anymore." She gave a short laugh, like I'd said something childish. "You're being dramatic." I shook my head once. "I'm being organized." Her phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked up with a new edge in her expression. "Calculation. They're talking about replacing you." "That takes time," I said. "We'll get a judge to sign off," she said. "You can try," I said. "It still takes time." She stared at me, then did something I didn't expect. She stopped pushing and started listening. It was subtle, but I noticed. When she couldn't force the outcome, she shifted to process. She wanted to know what path I'd already set. I leaned my shoulder against the doorframe and spoke in the same tone I used when I handled vendor calls at work. Simple, Sequential. Step 1, I said. I locked access so nothing moves without me. She flinched at that, just a little. Step 2, I said. I pause the sale so no one pretends this is fine while I'm being treated like a tool. Her eyes hardened, but she stayed quiet. Step 3, I said. Your lawyer puts a separation agreement in writing, dates, terms, my role ends, my name comes off anything that requires my signature. You stop calling me when it's convenient. Her face tightened. So, you're quitting the family. I kept my gaze steady. I'm stepping out of a job I never applied for. She stared at me for a long moment. The hallway light buzzed softly overhead, a faint electrical sound that made the silence feel sharper. You know this hurts, Mom, she said. I know, I said. And you knew it would hurt me. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she didn't have a quick line ready. She took a step back, like she'd run out of room in the doorway. Martin wants everyone in a meeting, she said. He says it's the cleanest way. I told him to send details, I said. Her eyes narrowed again. And you'll show up? If it's documented, I said. Yes. She watched me like she was trying to decide whether this was real. Then she turned her head slightly, listening to something on her phone, a notification, another buzz. Fine, she said, but don't make it worse. I didn't respond. She lingered another beat, then pivoted and walked toward the elevator without looking back. Her heels clicked on the hallway floor in a steady rhythm, not frantic now, contained. She was already rewriting the story in her head, figuring out how to say this happened because of me, not because of what she'd left on my voicemail. I closed my door and locked it. Then I went back to my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and waited. At 4:18 p.m., an email came in from Martin, a meeting invite, a downtown address, a glass conference room, all attendees listed, my sister, my parents, me. I read it once, then again. I clicked accept. The next morning, I took a shower, put on clean clothes, and left my apartment early. The air outside had that winter bite that wakes you up fast. My breath showed for a second, then disappeared. Downtown was already moving. Cars, crosswalks, people with coffee cups and neutral faces. When I reached the office building, I stepped into the lobby and felt the temperature change. Warm air, polished stone, quiet music playing low enough to ignore. I checked in at the front desk, then sat in a chair near the elevators with my hands folded in my lap. I didn't rehearse what I would say. I didn't need to. The doors to the elevator slid open, and I stood up. The elevator opened onto a quiet floor that smelled faintly like carpet cleaner and coffee that had been sitting too long. A receptionist pointed me down a short hallway. The conference room was all glass, meant to feel neutral. It didn't. Neutral rooms still hold tension. They just make it easier to see. My sister was already there. Of course she was. She sat straight-backed with her phone face down on the table, hands folded like she was practicing calm. Her eyes flicked up when I walked in, then away, as if looking at me too long might give me more space than she wanted. My parents came in together a minute later. My mother's purse was clutched tight against her side like it was something solid. My father avoided my eyes at first, then looked up and nodded once, small and restrained. No one hugged me. No one asked how I'd been sleeping. That told me what kind of meeting this was. Martin Caldwell came in last, carrying a thin folder and a legal pad. He closed the door gently behind him, then sat at the head of the table without making it feel like a performance. "Thank you for coming," he said. "We're here to resolve an impasse." I didn't correct him. It wasn't an impasse. It was a consequence. He looked at each of us once, then set his pen down like he wanted the room to slow down. "As it stands," he said, "the trust requires operational consent for any major transaction involving the property. The pending sale is paused. The buyer has raised concerns." My sister exhaled sharply and spoke before anyone else could. "This never should have escalated," she said. voice measured. It was a voicemail, a private moment. I met her eyes. You left it. Her gaze tightened. You know what I meant. I know what you said, I replied. My mother's mouth trembled. Can we not do this like this? I turned my head toward her, kept my voice even. Like what? She didn't answer. Her eyes went to the table, then to her hands. Martin lifted a hand slightly. Not a command, just a cue. Let's stay with the legal reality, he said. Right now, any path forward requires cooperation. My sister leaned in. There has to be a workaround. There is a process, Martin said carefully, but it takes time, court involvement, review of records, disclosures. My father shifted in his seat, shoulders tense. We don't need court. Then you don't treat me like I don't exist, I said. The room went still. My sister's expression turned sharp again, like she'd been waiting for me to say something that sounded emotional so she could dismiss it. That's not what this is, she said. You're making it about feelings. I'm making it about patterns, I said, and paperwork. Martin didn't interrupt. He just listened. I slid my phone across the table, screen up, and tapped the voicemail entry. Not to play it, just to show the timestamp and the transcript preview, a small line of text that made it harder to pretend. My mother's eyes closed for a second. That was the only reaction I needed. I've spent years keeping things running, I said. Not loudly, just quietly. Bills, insurance, repairs, calls, reminders. Every time something was about to fall apart, I handled it so no one had to sit in the discomfort. My sister scoffed. You act like you're the only one who does anything. I'm not acting, I said. I'm stating what the records show. Martin opened his folder and pulled out a printed page. He didn't wave it around. He placed it flat on the table like it was a fact, not a weapon. I reviewed the transaction log, he said. There's a clear operational pattern here. My sister stared at him, then at the paper, then back at me. So what now? She asked, slower, less force, more calculation. What do you want? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I want separation, I said. A clean end date to my role. Documented. No more open-ended responsibility. No more being required when it's convenient and dismissed when it's not. My father frowned. That hurts everyone. It protects me, I said. My mother whispered my name like she was asking me to soften it. Please. I looked at her. Really looked. You heard it, I said quietly. You heard her tell me not to come back. My mother didn't deny it. Her shoulders dropped a fraction, like the truth had weight. Martin nodded once, then laid out his pen and spoke like he was reading from a checklist. Here are the options, he said. 1. We restore cooperative access immediately and proceed with the sale, with an amendment that clarifies roles and expectations. My sister nodded too fast, like she wanted that one to win by momentum. 2, Martin continued, we begin removal proceedings. That will freeze the trust's ability to act on major transactions until a court approves a change. My father's jaw tightened. And 3, Martin said, eyes moving to me. You step away entirely. Access is revoked, responsibilities end, and there is a compensation agreement for administrative burden already carried. The sale timeline resets. My sister sat back, eyes wide now. That could cost us the buyer? Yes, Martin said. It likely would. The room waited. I felt their attention on me the way it had been my whole life when something needed fixing. The quiet expectation that I would choose speed and peace, then absorb whatever resentment came later. I looked at my sister, then at my parents, then back to Martin. I choose 3, I said. My sister's head snapped toward me. You cannot be serious. I am, I said. I don't want access. I want separation. My father spoke like he was trying to regain control through reason. "You're doing this over a voicemail." I kept my tone flat. "I'm doing this because it confirmed what I already knew." My mother reached across the table and placed her hand near mine. Not on top of it, not holding, just close. A gesture that wanted to be comfort without admitting fault. "Why now?" she whispered. "Because now you noticed," I said. Martin wrote something down, then looked up. "If we proceed with option 3, I will draft the amendment and the separation agreement. It will require signatures from all parties." My sister's fingers tightened around her phone. "And if I refuse?" "Then we move to option 2, Martin said, "and everything stops." Silence again. It wasn't a dramatic silence. It was the kind that happens when a system finally shows its rules out loud. Martin slid the folder toward the center of the table. "I'll send a draft by end of day," he said. "You can review independently. No one signs under pressure." My sister stared at the folder like it had insulted her. I stood up first. No speeches, no last lines meant to sting, just movement. My parents stood a second later. My mother looked like she wanted to say something that might fix the feeling in her chest. My father looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before, not old, just out of options. As we left the glass room, my sister leaned close enough that only I could hear her. "You think you've won?" she said. I looked at the hallway ahead, the elevator doors waiting, the quiet office air. "I think I've left," I said. The elevator came, and we stepped in. No one spoke as the doors slid shut. The elevator ride down was silent. My sister stared at the floor numbers like she could will them to move faster. My mother held her purse with both hands. My father looked straight ahead, jaw set, like he was trying to keep everything contained by refusing to react. When the doors opened into the lobby, we separated without saying goodbye. No one reached for me. No one tried to smooth it over. They were already focused on what would happen next, what would cost them time, what would cost them money. I walked out into the cold air and kept going. By the time I got home, my email was already filling up again. New subject lines, new urgency, different wording. The buyer's agent was asking for assurances. The escrow officer wanted confirmation in writing. Martin sent a short note that afternoon. He'd draft the separation agreement and trust amendment, and he'd circulate them for review. He also included a timeline, the kind that makes things feel real. Draft by end of day. Revisions within 48 hours. Signatures within a week, if everyone cooperated. If. That evening, my sister texted, "This is going to blow up." I didn't reply. I made dinner, nothing complicated. Pasta, olive oil, salt. I ate standing at the counter, then rinsed my plate and set it on the rack. I kept my movements simple, like the day had its own rules, and I was following them. The next morning, the buyer pulled out. No shouting, no accusations, just a polite email that said uncertainty made them uncomfortable, and they were stepping away. I read it once. Then I forwarded it to Martin and the escrow officer with one line. "Understood. Please confirm the transaction is closed." Then I closed my laptop. My phone rang around noon. My mother. I answered. Her voice sounded smaller than it had in the conference room, like she'd used up all her controlled tone and didn't know what was left. "They're saying the buyer won't come back," she said. "I didn't change the buyer," I said. A quiet breath on the line. "But you changed the plan," she said. I leaned my shoulder against the kitchen wall and looked at the light on the floor, a clean rectangle from the window. "That plan never included me," I said. "It only used me." She didn't argue. After a moment, she said, "Your sister isn't sleeping." I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel guilt. I felt distance. "She told me not to come back," I said. "I know," my mother whispered. That was new. Not an excuse, not a revision, just an acknowledgement. When we ended the call, I sat down and opened Martin's draft when it arrived. Dry language, clean lines, dates and terms that left no room for reinterpretation. My access ended on a specific day. My responsibilities ended on the same day. My name would be removed from the transaction chain that required my signature. There was a compensation clause, modest and specific, tied to administrative burden already carried. Not an emotional award, not an apology, just a number that made the work visible. I read it twice, then printed it. When you've spent years being the person who holds things together quietly, you learn to trust paper more than promises. Over the next few days, the messages changed tone again. My sister stopped texting commands and started sending short, clipped questions. Did you sign? When does this become official? Martin says you need to confirm the date. My father left a voicemail that tried to sound reasonable. You didn't have to do it this way, he said. I didn't call him back. I sent Martin one email with a single line. I approve the draft as written. The signing happened the following week. No ceremony, no family dinner, no pretending. Just a scheduled appointment in Martin's office, one at a time, like people who didn't trust each other enough to share a waiting room. When it was my turn, Martin slid the final documents across the table. He pointed to the signature lines. He didn't rush me. This ends your operational role, he said, cleanly. I picked up the pen. I signed where I needed to sign, initialed where I needed to initial, dates filled in with steady handwriting. The pen felt heavier than it should have, not because the act was emotional, but because it was final. When I stood to leave, Martin handed me a copy in a plain folder. No one can claim confusion now, he said. That was the point, I replied. 2 days later, the compensation transfer hit my account. A simple notification from my bank. No family message attached. No explanation, just confirmation. That night, my sister sent one last text. I didn't mean it like that. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally understood what the sentence was. It wasn't accountability. It was an attempt to soften consequences without changing behavior. I typed 3 words. I know. Take care. Then I blocked her. I set my phone face down on the table and made tea. The kettle clicked off, and the apartment went quiet again, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like waiting. I sat with the warm mug in both hands and looked at the folder Martin had given me, the document inside that ended my role with a date and a signature. And for the first time, the system wasn't spinning around my availability. It was simply closed. After I blocked my sister, the world did not explode. It just got quieter, one small thing at a time. The first change was my phone. It stopped buzzing like it was responsible for keeping everyone calm. My mother called once or twice that week, but her voice stayed careful, like she was trying to speak without stepping on a wire. My father, Paul, left one voicemail that sounded like he'd practiced it in the car. I don't like how this happened, he said, but I understand you felt cornered. He didn't say sorry. He didn't say my sister was wrong. He just placed his understanding at a safe distance, where it couldn't require anything from him. I listened once, then deleted it. A few days later, Martin emailed me the final confirmation. The trust amendment was filed. My access was formally ended. The separation terms were fully executed. Dates, signatures, everything clean. It was the kind of email that doesn't feel emotional until you realize how much of your life used to depend on people refusing to put anything in writing. I filed it away and went back to work. And that's when the second change showed up. The story began shifting, not in any dramatic way, not in public posts or family announcements, just in the small language people used when they reached out. An aunt I hadn't heard from in a year texted me, "Hope you're doing okay. Families are complicated." A cousin sent, "I heard you're taking space. Good for you." No one asked what happened. No one wanted details. They wanted a version that felt comfortable to hold. Something that didn't make them question how they'd watched me get used. I let them have their softened version. It didn't matter anymore. A month passed, then 2. The house still didn't sell. Not because my sister Kendra wasn't trying. She was trying constantly. New agent, new staging, new price, new urgency. I heard it all secondhand, little fragments offered to me like bait. "The market's weird right now," one relative said at a birthday dinner, swirling ice in a glass like the motion could explain everything. "They might rent it out," another whispered, like it was a secret plan. What no one said out loud was the real part. Without me attached to the process, every delay showed up in full daylight. Every missed document, every forgotten signature, every confusing request from the title company that used to land in my inbox and get solved quietly before anyone felt stress. Now the stress had nowhere to go. It stayed with them. A few people tried to reach me the way Kendra always did, through other voices. My mother mentioned, "Your sister misses you," once, then went quiet when I didn't respond. A cousin wrote, "She didn't expect it to go this far." I read that message, stared at it for a minute, then set my phone down and kept washing dishes. There was nothing to explain. She expected exactly what she'd always gotten. My silence, my labor, my willingness to smooth things out so everyone else could keep their roles. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger takes energy. This was different. This was absence. One afternoon in early fall, I ran into her by accident. A grocery store parking lot midday, sunlight sharp enough to make the asphalt look pale. I had a basket in one hand, keys in the other, thinking about nothing more serious than whether I had time to stop for gas. Kendra was loading bags into her trunk with her phone wedged between her shoulder and ear, already irritated about something I couldn't hear. She turned, saw me, and froze. I didn't. I kept walking. She said my name, not loud, not sharp, like she was testing whether it still worked. I stopped and turned, mostly because I didn't want to carry the feeling of running. I wanted it to be clean. Up close, she looked thinner. Not fragile, just tired in a way she wasn't used to showing. Her eyes moved over my face like she was looking for guilt. "This didn't have to happen," she said. "It did," I replied. She glanced around the lot, uncomfortable without a room to control. "You could still help fix things." I felt my mouth lift into a small smile, not sarcastic, just honest. "That was never my job," I said. For a moment, she just stood there. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She looked like she wanted to say something rehearsed, something that would restore the old balance, but she couldn't find a line that fit the reality. I didn't wait for one. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove away. When I got home, I didn't sit down right away. I didn't scroll. I didn't replay the conversation. I walked to my laptop, opened it, and clicked into a folder I'd kept for years. It was labeled, simply, Old Files. Inside were documents I no longer needed, emails that used to dictate my schedule, reminders tied to responsibilities that weren't mine anymore. I hovered my cursor over the folder, hand steady on the mouse. Then I paused. I clicked the folder once, then right-clicked. The menu popped up like it always did. Ordinary options for an ordinary task. The kind of thing I'd done 1,000 times at work without thinking. This time, I looked at the file names first. Utility receipts, insurance PDFs, email chains titled Urgent, that were only urgent because no one else wanted to handle them. Scans of forms I'd signed because everyone said it was easier if I did it. I selected the whole folder. Delete. A small confirmation box appeared. I read it, then clicked yes. The folder disappeared. No dramatic feeling, no rush of victory, just a quiet emptiness where weight used to sit. I took the trash out, wiped down the counter, and rinsed the mug that had been cooling beside my laptop. Then I made tea again, the same way I'd started doing since that week, slow and simple. Kettle on, cup ready, bag in, water poured, a minute of steam, then the scent. It was the kind of routine that doesn't ask anything from you except presence. My parents still called sometimes after that. Not often, not like before. My mother would talk about safe things, a neighbor's new dog, a recipe she'd tried, weather that had turned colder earlier than usual. She didn't bring up the house unless her voice slipped and I could hear worry underneath. Once, she said, "We're figuring it out." I believed her. I also knew "we" didn't include me anymore, and for the first time, that didn't hurt. My father's calls were shorter. He sounded careful, like he'd finally learned that pushing me would only end the conversation. "You doing okay?" he asked one evening. "Yes," I said. A pause. Then, quieter than I expected, "All right." That was it. There was distance now, but it was honest distance. No pretending everything was fine. No pretending they hadn't stayed silent when it mattered. Just a new arrangement built on limits instead of expectation. The months that followed were calm in a way that felt unfamiliar at first. I stopped checking my phone when I woke up. I stopped bracing before holidays. I stopped rehearsing conversations I might never have. On weekends, I cleaned my apartment in small passes, music low, windows cracked, laundry folded neatly instead of left in a pile while I handled someone else's emergency. I bought a small plant for the kitchen windowsill and kept it alive, which sounds simple, but it felt like proof of something. One Saturday morning, I was carrying groceries up the stairs when I ran into my neighbor, a woman named Tessa who lived 2 doors down. We'd exchanged polite hellos for months, nothing more. She looked like she'd been crying, not dramatically, just quietly, like she'd tried to wipe it away and go on with her day. "You okay?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She hesitated, then nodded too fast. "Family stuff." I didn't press. I just shifted the grocery bag in my hand and waited. After a second, she said, "My brother keeps asking for money. He's always in a crisis. And when I say no, he tells everyone I'm cruel." I watched her face, the way she looked embarrassed for saying it out loud. I said, "If someone only knows you as useful, boundaries will feel like cruelty to them." She blinked, like the sentence landed somewhere she hadn't been able to reach on her own. "I don't even know how to start," she admitted. I nodded once. "Start with one clean rule you can repeat. Then stick to it." She took a slow breath. "Okay." We stood there for a moment in the stairwell light. Quiet, the way people do when they've finally heard something that sounds like permission. I went inside, put my groceries away, and noticed how steady my hands were. That was the difference now. Not that my life was perfect, not that I never felt sadness, but my nervous system wasn't living in someone else's weather anymore. I had room, real room. Later that night, I took a short walk around my block, streetlights on, a few cars passing, the air cool enough to make me pull my jacket closed. I thought about how many years I'd spent believing the only way to keep peace was to stay available for harm. I'd been wrong. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to be closed. If you're still here with me, thank you for listening. If this kind of quiet, boundary-setting story speaks to you, please tap like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Also, stick around because 2 popular stories are going to play next, and I think you'll recognize the same patterns in a very different family.